Harry Kane's hairline changed, and people think they know why. Look at him at 17, then look at him lifting his head at the 2022 World Cup. Something is different, and I'm not talking about the goals. I'm a doctor. I spend my time studying hairlines, transplants, and the tricks people use to fake them. So when a hairline this famous changes this much, I notice. Today we're talking about Harry Kane, England's captain, one of the best strikers alive, and the man at the center of one of football's longest-running hair transplant mysteries. Let's start where this story actually starts. Not with the transplant, with the hair loss. Back when Kane was just 17, playing for Leyton Orient, you can already see it. A slight recession at the temples. Nothing dramatic, just the early whisper of what was coming. At that age, most people wouldn't even notice, but once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. Fast forward a few years, Kane becomes a Tottenham regular. He builds that signature look, hair slicked back, confident, sharp. But that hairstyle does something cruel. It exposes everything. Slicked back hair hides nothing. And what it revealed was a hairline pulling back further every year, especially on his left side. By 2018, doctors would call this Norwood Stage 3. That's not early hair loss anymore. That's a proper, visible, M-shaped hairline. The kind that makes a 25-year-old start Googling things late at night. Now here's where most people get this story wrong. They think comparing two photos is simple. Photo A, photo B, done, mystery solved. It is not that simple. Lighting changes everything. Wet hair looks thinner. Gel changes the shape of a hairline completely. Camera angles can hide recession or exaggerate it in seconds. Before we say a single word about surgery, we have to remember the camera lies constantly. This is exactly why footballers are the hardest subjects in the world to analyze. They are photographed under stadium lights, in the rain, sweating 100 times a season. So let's slow down and actually look at the real evidence, not just vibes. Between 2018 and 2020, Kane's hairline stayed uneven. Left temple worse than the right, classic genetic pattern. Nothing about this looked styled or corrected. This was real, textbook male pattern baldness, playing out exactly the way it does for millions of men. So here's your first answer. The early hair loss, 100% real. No filter, no flattering angle, explains a Norwood Stage 3 hairline. That part of the story isn't speculation. That's just what male pattern baldness looks like when it's left alone. But that's not the interesting part of this story. The interesting part is what happens next. Here's the twist that a lot of people miss. The rumors about Kane getting a transplant didn't start after people noticed a change. They started in 2020, before the dramatic difference was even obvious in photos. Sit with that for a second. Fans were speculating before the hard evidence existed, which means either people were incredibly good at spotting something subtle and early, or they were seeing what they expected to see. That's the tension at the heart of this whole case. Are we looking at real proof, or are we looking at a story we already wanted to believe? Before I tell you where I land on that, I want to know where you land. Drop a comment right now. Transplant, medication, or just a really good barber? I'll tell you my real answer soon, but I want your gut reaction first. Okay, let's go deeper, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. By 2021, small changes start appearing. Slightly lower, slightly straighter at the edges. Subtle enough that you could still say, that's just a good haircut. But then comes June 2022, right before the World Cup in Qatar. And this is the moment everyone points to. Kane shows up with his hairstyle completely changed. Gone is the slicked back look he'd worn his entire career. In its place, something fuller, brushed up, more textured. And underneath that new style, his temples, the exact spot that had receded unevenly for years, suddenly look even, balanced, dense. Now, a flattering haircut absolutely can hide temple recession. That's real. That's not a myth. Brushed up styles are genuinely one of the best tricks for disguising this exact kind of hair loss. So, on its own, the haircut change proves nothing. But here's what makes doctors pay closer attention. It's not just the style, it's the density underneath the style. A clever haircut can redirect hair to cover a gap. It cannot manufacture new density where there wasn't any before. And multiple hair restoration specialists, independently, looking at these same before and after photos, have pointed to the same thing. The temples don't just look styled differently, they look like they have more hair there to work with. For context, Kane isn't alone in this conversation. He gets mentioned constantly alongside other footballers with the exact same rumors swirling around them. Antonio Conte, Cesc Fabregas, David Silva, Sadio Mane, Xherdan Shaqiri. Football and hairline speculation have basically become a genre of their own at this point, but Kane's case has more documented photo evidence than almost any of them. Year by year, tournament by tournament, we can actually trace this. So here's your second answer, and it's more specific than the first. If something did happen here, it wasn't a dramatic transformation. The clinics who've looked at this estimate somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 grafts, done with a technique called FUE, which is minimally invasive and leaves almost no visible scarring. That's not a full head rebuild. That's a small, targeted, temple-focused touch-up, the kind designed specifically to not look like a hair transplant. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of procedure a professional athlete who lives under HD cameras every single week would choose if he wanted results nobody could ever prove for certain. But I promised you the full story, and there's one more layer. Here's the part that even experts argue about. A low-graft, well-planned FUE transplant can look almost identical to a great response from finasteride or minoxidil combined with a flattering haircut. I have looked at thousands of hairlines professionally, and even I cannot give you 100% certainty from photos alone anymore. That's how good modern hair restoration has gotten. And there's something bigger underneath all of this too. Kane has never confirmed anything. Not a yes, not a no, nothing. And honestly, why would he? He's a public figure whose entire brand is built on being solid, dependable, unshakable. Confirming a cosmetic procedure invites questions he never has to answer if he just stays quiet. Silence protects him completely, whether the answer is yes or no. And that's really what this story is about underneath the hairline itself. It's about how much pressure there is to look a certain way when millions of people are watching you every single week, judging everything, your performance, your face, your hair. Kane doesn't owe anyone an explanation for how he chooses to look. None of us do. But it says something about our culture that we've analyzed his hairline more closely than some people analyze his actual football stats. So here's my final verdict, and I'm not going to hedge on this one. The early hair loss, completely real, no debate. The change around 2021 to 2022, too consistent, too specific to the exact spots that had receded to be explained by lighting or a haircut alone. My honest read, as someone who does this professionally, is that Kane most likely had some combination of a low-graft transplant focused on the temples, alongside medical therapy to maintain it. Not a dramatic surgery, a smart, quiet, well-executed one. Here's why I land there specifically. When a hairline recedes naturally, it doesn't pull back evenly. Genetics doesn't work like an eraser moving in a straight line. It creeps back faster in some spots than others. That's exactly what Kane's hairline did for over a decade. Left temple always a step ahead of the right. Predictable, consistent, boring in the way real biology usually is. But then that unevenness just disappears. Both temples end up looking balanced and dense at the same time. Untreated hair loss doesn't correct itself like that. It doesn't decide to even itself out right before a World Cup. That kind of symmetry usually means one of two things. A surgeon designed it that way on purpose, or medication is working exceptionally well and evenly on both sides at once. Either one fits the pattern we're seeing. There's also a detail most casual comparisons miss completely. It's not just about where the hairline sits, it's about its shape. A poorly done transplant tends to look too straight, too perfect, almost drawn on with a ruler, and that's honestly one of the biggest giveaways when something's gone wrong. But Kane's hairline still has that soft, slightly irregular edge you'd expect from a natural one, which tells me if this was surgical, it was done by someone who genuinely knew what they were doing. That's not amateur work. That's precision, the kind that's built specifically to never get clocked. And if that's the case, I'll say it plainly, it worked. It looks completely natural, which, if you're ever considering something similar yourself, tells you everything about what good, subtle work is actually supposed to look like. The goal was never a flawless straight line. The goal is a hairline that simply looks like it chose not to recede in the first place. Now, I want to hear from you. If you've ever dealt with a receding hairline yourself, tell me in the comments how old you were when you first noticed it. And vote, real quick, transplant or no transplant? What's your final answer after everything we just went through? And tell me who you want me to investigate next. I'm here every week breaking down the truth behind the transformations everyone's talking about. No guessing, no gossip, just what the evidence actually shows. Follow along, because the next one might just be someone you'd never expect.